We need emotional outlets. We need sometimes other people to speak on our behalf, to articulate things that we can't quite articulate ourselves. And we need opportunities to feel connection and to feel less alone. And that, I think, is one of the greatest gifts music has to offer us, and the arts in general. You know, you read something in a poem, or you see something in a film, or you hear something in a piece of music, where you're like, oh my God, that person gets me. I don't feel so alone anymore. It's powerful stuff.
This is American Masters Creative Spark, and I'm your host, Joe Skinner. And that's singer-songwriter Sarah McLachlan. She's a 3-time Grammy Award winner who you know from songs like I Will Remember You, Angel, and Building a Mystery. Sarah McLachlan is back with a new album, her 10th, called Better Broken. She's also featured in a new documentary called Lilith Fair, Building a Mystery, about the groundbreaking all-women music festival she founded in the mid-90s, which gave voice to a rising generation of artists in Canada and the United States. She's a Canadian artist with a profound impact here in America. She was born in Halifax, broke through in Vancouver, and then found her way to New York and Los Angeles. I met up with Sarah here in LA to talk about that journey and what sparks her creative process.
I don't think I ever thought about America versus Canada as a young child, or where music came from. I never actually gave it a thought, who was Canadian, who wasn't Canadian. And obviously I grew up on American folk music, Simon and Garfunkel, Joan Baez, because that's what my parents listened to. So I never really thought about the cultural divide. I think for me, it was just really exciting to come to new places and see new people and see how different the world could be. Halifax at the time when I left was pretty parochial and small. And Vancouver, by comparison, was this, shiny, beautiful city on the ocean and with the mountains looming behind it. And it was really beautiful, but not that dissimilar, although way more cliquey than Halifax, Nova Scotia. But I loved New York. I loved the energy of it. I loved LA. I loved Texas. When I went on tour, that was when I really discovered how vast and beautiful and different the different states are in America. What a huge country it was. And started to get to know people in different states. And I don't know, I kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with Texas. In particular, I just thought the people there were so kind and open. I'm also aware that I was, traveling in circles of liberal-minded, like-minded people, for sure. But I think the coolest thing that I discovered, regardless of where I went, was that there was this beautiful commonality in the music. And I could recognize instantly, more so now than earlier on, but just, people coming from very different walks of life, different cultural backgrounds, but music being this connector where we're all kind of, for a moment, just human together.
Could you get into more specifics about that? Like, what was the commonality with the music itself?
I think that just the emotional energy of it, seeing big, burly, grown men cry in front of me, who, and again, this is just about me and my, your pre-existing ideas of what people might be like because of how they look. I've had guys that look like they live and breathe death metal and are actually really scary and intimidating and come up to me and say, "Oh, listen to death metal and Sarah McLachlan. Freaking love you, and you make me cry. You bring this emotional world forward for me that I don't know how to access." And, so I've had moments like that are, I'm just almost always pleasantly surprised by people when they defy sort of the sort of first impression.
That's always one of the most exciting things about just meeting people in general, I find.
Travel, yeah, and just being open-minded and curious about people. It's like, where are you from? What are you interested in? And these days, of course, it's always comes to this political head so quickly. I just recently went on a cruise, and it was very interesting. I could tell almost instantly who the Democrats were, because it's mostly Americans on the board. It was a very small boat. Who the Americans, or who the Democrats and who the Republicans were, because the Democrats mostly came up and apologized profusely to me for what was going on, and the Republicans were generally, well, it's interesting times. Things are, there's a lot of shifts happening, but I'm sure things will settle down pretty quick. I'm like, oh, okay. But then we moved on to talk about family and kids, and those, and just right into more human things that we all shared similarities in. Like, being a mother for me was this wonderful thing, because all of a sudden I felt like I finally had something to talk about with other women too. Women in particular. Like, I always kind of felt like a little bit of an outsider, and I didn't quite know how to, was socially awkward, and being a mother, it's like this instant connection of, okay, this is something we all have in common, and it's just brings it down to a very human thing.
And there's so much discussion these days, like you're getting at a little bit here, about literal borders between America and Canada, for example. And once you look just a little bit past that headline, it's clear that that's all very imaginary once you get down to it. Like, we're all people.
We're all just parents and father, husbands, wives, friends, trying to figure out how to move through this together, and how to put food on the table for our kids, and how to have a roof over our heads, and how to find some peace and some, happiness and satisfaction in the work that we're doing. And I think hopefully, living a purposeful, meaningful life. We only get one kick at the can. So I think, we owe it to ourselves and each other to try and do the best we can to move things forward in a positive way.
In the 1990s, Sarah McLachlan wanted to move the music industry forward in a positive way. So she started Lilith Fair, taking the name Lilith from some mythologies that theorize her to be the first wife of Adam, who refused to be subservient to him. The festival quickly became a who's who of iconic 90s women musicians, including artists like Fiona Apple, Tracy Chapman, Sheryl Crow, Jewel, Paula Cole, and dozens of others. Here's a clip from the trailer for Lilith Fair: Building a Mystery.
Singer Sarah McLachlan has launched an all-female tour.
This was the first time you'd seen anything like it.
Finding out that all of my favorite artists had played at this event.
The Lilith Fair bill is incredible.
Paula Cole, Suzanne Bigot, Erykah Badu,
Sinead O'Connor,
Missy Elliott, Sarah McLachlan, Sheryl Crow, Jewel. I was in disbelief that I'd never heard of it before.
Lilith actually started out as the simplest of ideas. I wanted to play some shows in the summer. I had always had women open up for me, and my manager was like, well, we could do something a little bigger. You could go out and do like a bunch of shows. I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility. Thought, why don't we have some other people come and play with us? And I was like, well, they should all be women. I was thinking about all these great artists who were coming up and having so much success alongside, around the same time I was, in different genres. But looking at the summer festivals, they were all male dominated. We weren't being represented at all. So I thought, well, let's just do something. We'll do something. And then I was told that we couldn't. I was told by promoters that, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't put two women on the same show. People won't come. It's like, well, I've been doing that my entire career, and I've had no problem with it. And you're telling me I can't do something. It's like, you're my mother. You'll fail. Oh, well, this is why I am who I am, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. So between that and, a lot of those old school attitudes in the industry, like you can't put two women back to back on the radio, that was sort of an unspoken rule as well. I just thought, no, we need to blast this out of the water. So it kind of became this, politicized thing, but it didn't start there. It was just a simple, I want to do this. This is a weird job I have as a woman in this industry. I love my band and my crew, but they're all guys, and I really want to have the opportunity to get to know some of my sisters in this weird role that I have as an artist. And creating that community was so valuable for me. And I think it became, by extension, this safe space and this beautiful space for everybody else who came and participated in the shows too. So it was really powerful and so much fun, and oh my God, so much work. But it was all worth it.
Yeah, I was going to say, we talk a lot about process on this show, and the process of running and founding a festival must be quite different from the process of recording an album.
Wildly different. And I do have to say, though, that I was not intimately involved in the build-up or the running of it. I had a great long list of artists that I wanted. I gave those artists to Marty Diamond, my agent at the time, and one of our partners in Lilith, and said, okay, here you go. Here are your marching orders. Go get as many of these artists as you can. And then it was his colossal job to have to phone up all the managers, explain what we were trying to do, and fight through all the no's and get a diverse, unique, interesting musical bill every night, which was a massive challenge, as it turns out. But I was happily just okay, this is going to be this is going to be fun. So I got to be the person, at the end of the day, at the forefront of it, because I was the face of it, and I was at the press conferences every day, and there was both pros and cons to that. Obviously, a lot of the the press and the backlash and the having to defend it constantly was a bit of a surprise and a shock to my system. But the beautiful part of it then was also being able to give a check to charity every day, typically a women's shelter in the markets, the cities that we were in. And sometimes that was up to like $30,000 a day. So I was the lucky person that got to hand over that check, and the feeling that gave me of pride and of like, we're actually leaving a lasting mark here, a lasting positive mark beyond just putting on a great musical show and creating this community for us. We're leaving a legacy. So
there was a really poignant moment where you said, you can't be everything for everyone.
Amen. And that took me a while to reconcile, because I'm a people pleaser, and I don't really like ruffling feathers. I just want to do this thing that I'm doing. And I was kind of definitely taken aback at the beginning around the backlash. And I was either Lilith was too feminist or not feminist enough, or too much of this or too little of that. And there was that constant barrage of, well, why do you hate men? And I'm like, what in the world does celebrating women have to do with hating men? Now I would say, well, honey, that sounds like this has way more to do with something that you have an issue with. But back then, I didn't know how to handle a lot of that. So it was definitely overwhelming, but there was a lot of amazing things as well.
Yeah, so of those amazing things, it must have been incredible to see so many of the artists you're championing up on stage. What was a particularly revelatory performance that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there were so many. I don't even, oof. I will say early on, Amy and Emily from the Indigo Girls, they came on, I think, like in the second or third week of the first year. And I was treading water. It was so overwhelming. And I just put out a new record, and I was so excited. And I was headlining this festival and realized very quickly that no one wants to hear the new material. They want to hear the old stuff. So I had to shift everything in my set, and we were putting out fires daily with Lilith and just everything that's going on, and greeting all the new artists. And I really wanted to have more interaction, but I was still kind of shy and didn't know how. And Amy and Emily showed up, and they're like, well, we should all be doing a song together. I'm like, that'd be great. How do we do that? She said, well, we'll just ask everybody. I'm like, you can do that? Could you do that? And because I was scared, I think I was scared of rejection, and I didn't know how to do it. I was a little shy, like you never know how things are going to go when you first start a conversation. And they just blasted in there and got everybody engaged and interested about let's do a song. So we picked a song, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And then after that, I'm like, okay, well, it emboldened me to start asking everybody. And it was fantastic. And both shall roll, my love and I.
where do you think all of these, specifically women folk artists and women folk pop artists, came from at that time? Was it all cafes just around the country and around Canada? Like what?
I think it was a lot of coffee house gigs. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just about getting in front of people and telling your story. And so it was really bizarre that I got signed at 19 and got kind of offered this golden ticket. And I had never written a song before. And Network Records, they saw me when I was 17, my first band, wanted me to join the band. That didn't happen, but they came back a couple years later and offered me this deal and then said, we want to see what you come up with. You write. I'm like, I don't know how to write, but I'll figure that out really quickly. And it was one of those fake it till you make it. Oh my God, I've got the golden ticket. What do I do with this? And, there was some fits and starts, but a year later I had a record, and then I had that support of, we're gonna pay for you to go tour. And it was in a van with a bunch of smelly guys all piled in like puppies together, and off we went, and it was living the dream. And we just kind of kept building. Then it was a little RV, and then 4 tours later we got our first tour bus, and which broke down like 10 times on the Canadian highways. But we just kept plugging along. And I think that is the story, of a lot of artists. I mean, but I struggled way less than a lot of other artists. So I'm consider myself extremely lucky to have been given the opportunity that I had.
How did music first come into your life? Was it in the house when you were growing up?
Yeah. So my mom loved, I think she literally had 3 albums. I think there was Cat Stevens, Simon and Garfunkel, and Joan Baez. And so those were on big just constant rotation in the house. So those are the songs, American folk music. That's what I grew up listening to. When I was 4 years old, I was like, I'd memorized all the records, and I really want to be just like Joan Baez. I want to play an instrument. So I was a little teensy thing. So instead of giving me a guitar, which was also expensive, I got a ukulele and took uke lessons for a couple of years. And then when we moved into the city, I got a guitar and started taking classical music lessons, which it was not what I necessarily wanted to do, but it was the only way to learn the instrument at the time. I took a bunch of classical guitar, ended up with classical piano and with opera training as well, which didn't really do me any favors. But again, it was, you want to take voice lessons here, learn opera. I'm like, no, I don't really want to learn opera. But yeah, so it was always like my earliest memories are singing. When I think of almost any happy memories I have from my childhood, has music in it.
And so has your songwriting process from the beginning been the same as it is today?
I would like to think I've honed my craft.
Your craft, certainly. But how does the song start for you?
Honestly, that is about the same. It's about sitting at either the piano or guitar and just not having any perceived outcome in mind, just playing for the joy of playing and humming and making sounds, using my voice as another instrument to sort of create sounds, create a mood. Sometimes words would come with that. And there'd often be like a core of a couple chords and a melody that felt strong and maybe a few words there. And then I'd be like, oh, I've got something. And then just honing that and working that and trying to build a story around whatever it is. And because lyrically, I had no idea what I was doing, even less. Musically, I kind of had a better idea how to write, but lyrically, I was just like, what do I have to, I'm 19, I have no life experience. So I just started writing about my dreams. I would remember my dreams and I would write about that, or I'd write about a book that I was reading and how it made me feel and what my emotional reaction was to it or to other things that were happening in my life.
And then as you were coming in to become an adult and be your own person, what kind of music were you listening to then and looking up to?
So my mind was blown open at around 17 when I heard Peter Gabriel for the first time. And around that time, I was also hearing Kate Bush, Cocteau Twins, Dead Can Dance, The Cure. So just started, like, I did a deep dive into Peter Gabriel, then into early Genesis before he left. I just picked apart particularly Peter Gabriel's music, and not so that I could make the same kind of music, but it's like, I want to make the kind of music the way he makes me feel. I want to do that for other people. I don't know, there's no math to it. It was all feel and just exploration and trying different things.
It's great to have a guiding light like that to kind of keep you focused.
Yeah, he was amazing, and I met him when I was 22. I was working in Dan Lanois studio in New Orleans in the B room upstairs, and he walked into the kitchen, was getting himself a beer out of the refrigerator, and I was trying to pull my jaw up off the floor and find something intelligent that I could say because I was just freaking out inside. It's like meeting God in the kitchen. And he was so lovely and kind and generous with me. He's like, "How are you doing? You working on a record too?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "How's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, it's really slow." And he's like, "Oh God, me too." So it's like right away, and that was purposeful, right? I'm sure it was probably honest, but it's trying to make me feel comfortable. And it was a lesson that I took with me and always remembered, because all of a sudden there were people who were looking up to me in that way. And I always tried to be kind to them and take the time to make them feel comfortable. And just a really good lesson. You're very, how human he was and how sweet he was with me. He didn't have to be. I was nobody, but that's how he was. And it was like a great gift to me.
In the 30-odd years since Sarah met Peter Gabriel that day in New Orleans, she went on to produce a lot of internationally award-winning music and has gone platinum many times over. She's lived a lot of life. Her new album, her first with new material in 11 years, is called Better Broken, and it's all about weathering life's many storms.
I hope that I'm editing myself less and less and being less attached to any particular outcome. I think that was a real conscious effort on my part with this album, was just don't be attached to the outcome. Just go with the flow, see where the song takes it, let it show you where it wants to go, especially musically. And lyrically as well. It's like, what are you trying to say? Don't try and cram a square into a circle. It's like, just explore all the possibilities and look at it from all the sides, and then try and create something that's, fits into a framework that I've already created melodically, and just say something that feels authentic and purposeful and meaningful to me.
The first song recorded for the album is called Gravity, which explores the complexities of her own mother-daughter relationship.
Yours is an island of wild weeds and lush tangled ground, unbridled energy, all possibility.
I thought I knew what love was until I had a child. And then, the universe just got blown open. And the vulnerability and the fear of the loss of this creature that you're so attached to was kind of terrifying and overwhelming. But the intensity and the beauty of the love was really incredible too. And what it showed me, especially with my second, because how could I possibly love anything more than I love this child? You have another one, and it's like, your heart just opens up and just makes room for more. And that was a really beautiful realization. And it's translated to friendships where it's like, it's just this expansion and sometimes contraction. But it's your heart and the way you feel about people, me anyway, is that, I have a ton of room to love a lot of people. And I really like people, and I'm curious and interested in people, and it feels good to give that love out to the world. And I've had my heart broken a bunch of times, and people will say, "Well, doesn't that make you more guarded?" I'm like, I suppose it should, and I'm certainly a little choosier now, but I still am wide open because I just feel like that. What I get out of that is so powerful and so incredibly beautiful, and it is what it's like life, to love and to feel the pain and the intensity of it and the beauty of it. It's what life's all about. So I say, bring it on.
And how does that feed into your music, would you say?
Well, I think I try and bring all that into my music. And when we're talking about editing or self-editing, I try not to. I try to be, it's like, I am an open book. I think it's important to be honestly who you are and have as much integrity and clarity around who you are and how you want to show up in the world as you can. And for me, I want to put all that into the music and let it be about the energy of that. Maybe not so literal, but just, I think when I think about what music does for me and the gift that it is for me, that it's like medicine, it's like a salve, what it does to heal me, that's what I want my music to do for other people. This is like when I listen to Peter Gabriel, it's like, how do I pick that apart? I can intellectually pick it apart, but viscerally and in my body, I'm like, it just makes me feel so good. Makes me feel like, not that this old English gentleman understands me, but I get this amazing feeling and sense of connectivity from his voice, from the energy that he's bringing in. That's what I want my music to do for other people. And that's what I get every time I play live, which is, it's such a beautiful drug, and it's this, for a moment, being part of something bigger than yourself, where you get to share this thing that, I've created this music, but it's out there in the world now, and I get to sing it and be in that moment and have all these people come with me and be in their moments with them as well. Like, it's beautiful. I love it.
It sounds to me like your process is more impressionistic then, rather
Very.
than prescriptive. Or...
Very, very. Like I said, it is a go with the flow, what feels right, and just staying open to any possibility.
So then, not to be too literal, but I do know the single gravity. Gravity is sort of exploring your relationship at home, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a kind of I guess a postcard of a time in my life with my daughter that was extremely challenging. Things kind of came to a head after she went away to university for a year, came home, and she'd had a really tough time, and she didn't feel connected enough to me to tell me about it. So she was just a mess. And I was like, what is going on? I'm here for you. I love you. And we finally went into counseling together, family systems counseling. And what I came to realize after peeling back the layers of the onion was that she was not hearing or feeling the love that I was trying to send her, because I was a bit of a hard ass too. I wanted her to be able to manage in the real world. And I have lots of love, but also, like, you have to do these hard things. And what we didn't realize at the time, and all through growing up, is that she had this massive anxiety, but she couldn't articulate it. I didn't recognize it because I don't have anxiety, nor did I have the language for it. It just came up as this rage. A wall would go up in her, and she'd just be so angry. She never cried. She just raged. And, eventually, as a frustrated parent, a single parent, you start to look at that. It's like, what the hell? Like, you have to empty the dishwasher. I know it's ridiculous. Why is this World War III? And I'm stubborn as hell too, so I didn't help the situation. Anyway, basically, what I realized is that I had to change the way I communicated with her if I wanted to have a relationship with her. And she needed to learn that I wasn't trying to make her feel bad about herself, but that's what she was hearing. And so for me, it was devastating, and I had to eat a lot of humble pie and, sort of go, well, I thought I was being a really good parent, and now you're telling me I'm a parent. Well, I hate therapy. A classic. But, then I went away and I walked away from it. You think about it, and you're like, okay, what do we want out of this? I want a relationship with my daughter. So suck it up and, put your feelings on a shelf for a moment and just go, what does she need? And so that shift was really amazing. And, I talked to her 3 days ago. I said, I'm going to be doing a bunch of press and we're going to be talking about the song. Are you still okay with me talking about this? She goes, oh, I'm totally fine with it. Yes, go ahead. I said, you sure? Like all the bits, because it's one thing for me to talk about my own feelings and my own insecurities. But then to bring someone else into that equation and talk about something really intimate in a public forum, I just wanted to make sure she was okay with it. She's like, no, it's totally fine, Mom. I want you to talk about it. And since going through that process with her, like we have such a great relationship. But it was a lot of hard work, as I said, to peel back those layers and to forgive myself and to see her in a different light and to recognize all those things that looked like laziness and obstinance and just general you-ness towards me was just this wall that it was overwhelmed and she just couldn't manage. So then you go back through all those moments as a parent and beat the shit out of yourself for handling it the wrong way. And then you forgive yourself and go, okay, this is about moving forward and how do we show up differently for each other? And it's a very long story, but basically the song is about that in-between process when I was still trying to reach her and give her the love and support that I know she wanted, but she wouldn't accept it from me because she was so angry at me.
You can hide away, hold your heart at bay. I know you wanna be loved. No life will come apart and break your heart. I will be like gravity, always true. I won't give up on you.
I think it's important to talk about this stuff too, because, in this day and age when everything is so glossy and stylized and everybody appears to be living their best life, life is messy and lumpy and hard and painful and beautiful. But I think, being honest about the tough stuff and saying, I'm far from perfect. I'm very imperfect, and I'm okay with talking about that. Because I've had so many moms come up to me and cry and say, oh, you seem like you had the perfect, the perfect world, your two beautiful daughters and you all look so happy. It's like, yeah, you've had a lot of those moments, but parenting is really hard. And, parenting kids when you're a famous musician and them growing up in that shadow. This is another thing that I never considered around this because I thought I was making a very normal life for them. And in some ways I was, but they came on tour with me. They saw the weirdness of fame and they also saw my success and measured themselves against that. And that's a hard thing for a kid to grow up in the shadow of someone who, seemingly has their together and seemingly is incredibly successful and everything came so easy. It kind of did for me. Obviously there was hard work involved, but like I said, I got handed the golden ticket and I was so lucky. I did not struggle like so many other musicians did to get to the place where I got signed. It was handed to me. And I don't, for a day, and there's never a day goes by that I'm not grateful for that opportunity.
I know there are artists like Olivia Rodrigo who really look to your work and others of your era. And so I am curious, what your thoughts are on the next generation of singer-songwriters and women in music.
I first of all, I have to say I hardly listen to music, so I'm not the best person to talk about any of this stuff. I have been educated a little bit by my 18-year-old who listens to music all the time, and she's introduced me to a lot of younger artists. Phoebe Bridgers, Boy Genius have been sort of the, big anchors for us. But, I think when I look out at the world today and all, whether it's, the Billboard or, the artists that are having a ton of traction, there's so many women, it's so diverse, and it's heartening. I'm happy that I think in this fake time when, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of prefabricated stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's out there being generated purely for income. There is a lot of great art being made. And there's a lot of musicians who are really honing their craft and, being authentic and creating really good music. So I think the arts are the way to go. We need emotional outlets. We need sometimes other people to speak on our behalf, to articulate things that we can't quite articulate ourselves, and we need opportunities to feel connection and to feel less alone. And that, I think, is one of the greatest gifts music has to offer us, and the arts in general. You know, you read something in a poem, or you see something in a film, or you hear something in a piece of music, where you're like, oh my God, that person gets me. I don't feel so alone anymore. It's powerful stuff.
It's pretty wild how, when you look back at Lilith Fair and then look now, if you're ever down about where our culture is right now, that's the kind of thing that brings me such solace, because you see how far the mainstream culture has really grown since Lilith Fair came out.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we blew that thing open. I mean, there were these shifts back and forth. Music is very cyclical. And when Lilith ended, there was a sort of surge of very premeditated, prefabricated boy bands and girl bands that kind of burst onto the scene. And that became the thing for a while. But then, it's not like we went away. It just, these shifts happen, and the pendulum will swing wildly in one direction, wildly in the other, and then it ends up kind of righting itself in the middle. So maybe that Republican wasn't, that off. And it's like, yeah, things will settle down. Here's hoping.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. This has been a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you.